Hey, citizens of the future, or citizen of the future here. I hope everyone's doing fantastic. Today, I got a super regulated document from our favorite, the top of the world, the top of the regulated world, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. And this is a very interesting document. It's called Blockchain Consensus Mechanisms, a primer for supervisors. This was released last week. Today is February 2nd, 2022, and a week ago this was launched, and here we are reading this. So, we are at the head of the regulated revolution. And here we go. So, there's some good, there's some bad. There's some good for carbon neutral utility networks, and there's some bad for proof of work and proof of stake. So, before I get into this, I just want to read a disclaimer here. So, none of this is financial advice. I'm not paid to create any of this, but the reason I create my content is because I see a lack of good regulated information out there around these blockchain networks. You know, we see all this hype, all this hopium, all this pump and dump shit. No, I'm the regulated side. I'm giving you the stuff that I find through my research and through my studies. So, we know mainstream media is doing an awesome job at covering all this up, and well, I'm uncovering it for you other citizens that are interested in the fourth industrial revolution. So, let's dive into this video. Okay, guys, so before we get into this document, I want to explain to you and show you how powerful the IMF is, okay? So what is the International Monetary Fund? So it's an organization of 190 countries working to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, and to connect all these countries so we can have a globalized system. That's what they're doing. So they work with countries all over the world. And this document is to supervisors all over the world. They also work together with the World Bank Group, hand in hand. So this is how big, this is the top document, I'm telling you guys, okay? So now I'm going to show you guys what their backlinks look like. So as a tool that you can use is called Ahrefs, and this allows you to see how they're connected here. Now let's look. They've got 27 million backlinks. That is massive. As a developer, that is huge. Now, looking at this, look at how many educational backlinks and governmental backlinks that they have. Governmental, 679. That is the most I've ever seen developing these last 4 years. And educational content. Like that's a lot of, so that's other people's websites talking about them. That's huge. Okay, so we're about to get into a document coming from the IMF that's going to break down the consensus mechanisms of different blockchains. And that is what the supervisors around the world are going to read, and this is how they're going to make their decisions. Or part of it, anyways. Okay, so let's go. Let's dive. So what does it go over? It goes off of different consensus mechanisms, proof of work, proof of stake, delegated proof of stake. So proof of stake, you know, Ethereum, proof of work, Bitcoin, delegated proof of stake, which would be like XDC network. And then, but Byzantine fault tolerant, so XRP, XLM. Okay, let's dive. So executive summary. So I'm just going to zoom up here. There we go. The increasing use of distributed ledger technology in financial services has the potential to generate benefits for many stakeholders, but can also pose unique risks. DLT, including blockchains, is used in payments, issuing debt and equity, trade finance, and post-trade processes. Large-scale use of DLT in financial services is currently limited, but use cases are increasing in some jurisdictions. DLT has the potential to disintermediate markets, reduce costs, and increase speed and efficiency, and create secure records of transparent, immutable, and auditable data and activity. DLT can create democratization of data as the data are distributed and more control of the data is decentralized. It can improve the provision of financial products and services, including financial inclusion. So that would be like Mojaloop, XRP, connecting the unbanked to the banked, supply chain management, and record keeping. For supervisors, DLT can provide real-time control and supervision of financial markets. So that is huge. That brings up a thing in my mind here of FNA and how they can see the financial markets. And I'm going to put some pictures here so you could see that they could see all the payment flows around the world, how much money is moving, where is it moving to. They can single it all out and they can have it all on a beautiful infographic to see the statistics. So I'm just, went through this all. I'm just reading the highlighted parts that I thought were important. Consensus mechanisms underpin the effective operation of blockchains and ensure a single, consistent, and honest ledger. Consensus mechanisms in DLT systems guarantee that a state, value, and a piece of information is correct and agreed on by most nodes. Some consensus mechanisms are designed to work best in public networks, and others perform better in private networks. Different consensus mechanisms can also deliver different outcomes, which require different regulatory considerations. For example, some consensus mechanisms might prioritize speed and efficiency, while others might prioritize security. So within financial services, proof of work, proof of stake, and delegated proof of stake are some of the most popular consensus mechanisms in public blockchains. Well, Byzantine fault tolerance and Istanbul BFT and federated BFT are popular in private blockchains. Separately, large technology entities known as big techs also created consensus mechanisms that have the potential to be used in products and services that could be systematic quickly, for example, Diem BFT. Supporting the Bitcoin blockchain. Proof of work is the most popular consensus mechanism, but it suffers from significant drawbacks. Proof of work is a secure and resilient method of forming consensus, but it consumes significant energy and can be slow and expensive during times of high network traffic. So the IMF is pointing out the energy consumption needs to be solved, and it's unscalable when things get hot in the market. Although innovations such as the Lightning Network sidechains and other consensus mechanisms like proof of stake aim to solve some of proof of work problems, others issues such as probabilistic settlement can create friction with existing regulatory frameworks. These offer immediate settlement. However, they raise new regulatory concerns about areas such as competition, and they can run counter to the core ideals of decentralized networks. To ensure they can embrace the promise of fintech while migrating against any risks, authorities should consider the pros and cons of different consensus mechanisms. So we should all send this to the SEC because they have not done the pros and cons for different consensus mechanisms. One, they haven't even given us regulatory clarity. And here's the IMF, the head of all the countries around the world. And yeah, like, come on, guys. So let's go down here. Authorities should also consider whether a technology-neutral approach can continue delivering mandates when diverse new technologies deliver different outcomes, and may consider a more proactive approach to supporting or restricting certain technologies. Authorities could also consider upskilling supervisors to better supervise new technologies. So they're talking about, come on, like, let's get these supervisors to understand these technologies. International organizations have a role in sharing regulatory best practices, particularly in jurisdictions where there might be a skills gap. And finally, approaches such as tech sprints and regulatory sandbox. So we've all heard of CBDC sandbox with R3, with Project Ubin. There's a lot of sandboxes out there where it's just these big boys. They all play together. They get their CBDCs. They try this stuff, and it's all trial and error, as well as deeper public and private collaboration via formal reviews can enable authorities to understand the relative strengths and weaknesses of different consensus mechanisms, allowing firms in financial services to leverage the benefits of DLT while ensuring that risks are appropriately mitigated. So the public and the private companies need to work together. They keep doing reviews, sharing theses, proof of concepts, and then that's how we're going to improve. So, introduction. Regulatory authorities' general approach to financial innovation is one of technology neutrality, which is not the same as technology agnosticism, as not all technologies are equal. Authorities are open to use new technologies even as they seek to understand and mitigate any unique risks that the technologies might bring. Although regulatory authorities may be technology neutral, the concept of the same business, same activity, same risk, they might shift to become technology agnostic, as different technologies might generate different risks, where new technology creates unacceptable risks that could interfere in achieving the mandates and objectives of the regulatory authorities. Okay, so the rest of this is just filler. There's nothing really special in there. Come down here. So why consensus mechanisms matter? So here they show how consensus fits into distributed systems. There's an application layer, a contract layer, an incentive layer, the consensus layer, and then the network layer. The design of blockchains matters, and different consensus mechanisms come with their own advantages and disadvantages. Blockchains can be public or private, permissioned or permissionless. These designs bring with them the unique regulatory opportunities and risks. And this note will focus on the most popular consensus mechanisms that underpin blockchain systems in financial services. It is not an exhaustive list of all consensus mechanisms. Regulators must consider trade-offs when looking to understand the regulatory implications of certain blockchains. Some consensus mechanisms provide a greater focus on security and decentralization, good for record keeping. While others encourage greater speed and efficiency, for example, supporting a large number of payments transactions per second, there is a fundamental difference in how decisions are made in a centralized and decentralized systems. Okay, so consensus aims to solve problems of how to synchronize data across nodes. So remember, this consensus is how these nodes verify a block, how they when a transaction is made, these nodes across the whole network go through these different mechanisms to verify the block is legit. This block is certified, it is real, it is added to the network that's updated across all nodes. So in decentralized systems, distributed nodes need to come to agreements or a consensus, as there is no central authority to assume responsibility. Okay, so here we go, we're getting into it. Consensus mechanisms aim to solve these problems and ensure that there is one constant and honest ledger that distributed participants can come to an agreement. Distributed ledgers are considered Byzantine fault tolerant if they can solve such problems and ensure agreement. Okay, so here we go. Consensus mechanisms should not harm or interfere with the global aim to transition to a low carbon economy. Do you hear this, guys? The narrative now is changing for a global aim to transition to a low carbon economy. A transition to a greener economy supports the goals of the IMF, as well as the goals of many regulatory authorities, which seek to ensure sustainable growth in their respective markets while not harming the environment. The IMF, a week ago this was launched. This is the start of the narrative where they start attacking the high energy using proof of work and proof of stake networks. So if you're a Bitcoiner, you better start debuttling. You better start being ready to fight this, because there's going to be a fight between all the global regulators, the IMF, and all partners of the IMF. They're all going to start attacking the high energy consumption. This is a warning. The use of energy-intensive methods to achieve consensus presents unacceptable risks to financial stability in society, as such methods exacerbate the effects of climate change. Here we go, climate change. Recently, to manage the risks of climate change and mitigate environmental impacts from crypto assets, the Swedish Finansinspektionen, I'm Canadian and I can't pronounce that, I'm sorry guys, called by the European Union to ban proof of work mining in 2021. So I actually read this document, I took notes on it. So give me 2 seconds here and I'm going to pull it up. A key consideration of authorities should be moving to less environmentally damaging methods of operating blockchains. So they're saying blockchains can stay, but everyone needs to get away from the wasteful energy consumption. Okay guys, here it is. This is from the Sweden government. This is what I seen. This was November 5th, 2021. So 2-3 months ago. Crypto assets are a threat to climate transition. Energy-intensive mining should be banned. Okay, so I hope you guys like that enthusiasm here. We clearly see that the more expensive Bitcoin becomes, the more emissions it generates. They say, at the current market value, lead to the release of up to 120 million tons of CO2 in the atmosphere per year. To get a better sense of this number, using data from very smart people, 2 largest crypto assets today is equal to 100 million round trips between Sweden and Thailand. And then it says there is good access to renewable energy. So once we see more Bitcoin on renewable energy, I'm sure they'll back down. But until then, it's going to be a fight. We're already seeing crypto producers establish themselves in northern Sweden. Between April and August this year, electricity consumption for Bitcoin mining has increased by several 100% and now amounts to 1 terawatt hours annually. That is equal to the electricity of 200,000 Swedish households. Okay? Our conclusion is that policy measures are required to address the harms caused by proof of work mining method. It is important that both Sweden and Europe can use our renewable energy where it provides the greatest benefit for society as a whole. For instance, Sweden and other countries could introduce a tax on energy-intensive production of Bitcoin. Here we are. They're going to start saying, well, we're going to carbon tax you guys for mining Bitcoin. We're going to tax the fuck out of you until you stop mining Bitcoin, because it's a waste of energy and we have all control over the global system. The emissions need to stop here and now, and renewable energy needs to be used for climate transition of essential services. Therefore, we call for the EU to consider an EU-level ban on the energy-intensive mining method, proof of work. There are other methods for mining crypto assets that could be used for Bitcoin and Ethereum that are estimated to reduce energy consumption by 99.95% with maintained functionality. Huh. Wonder what networks run 99% less than Bitcoin and Ethereum, but could run the transactions of Bitcoin and Ethereum on top of their ledger. Hmm. Sweden to meanwhile introduce measures that halt the continued establishment of crypto mining production using energy-intensive methods. The companies who trade and invest in crypto assets that are mined using proof of work method cannot be allowed to describe or market themselves or their activities as sustainable. So now they're attacking any company. If you're a company that's buying Bitcoin that uses proof of work, you cannot label your company as sustainable anymore. Could you imagine what that would do to the market? But it is important that Sweden and the European Union lead the way and set an example in order to maximize our chances of meeting the Paris Agreement. We should also strongly encourage other countries and regions to follow suit. A ban on the proof of work mining method within the EU could be an important first step in a global move towards greater use of our energy efficient crypto mining methods. This is from the generals at the Swedish Financial Supervisory Authority and an environmental protection agency. So you can see, this was 3 months ago. Now we're talking about the IMF. The IMF is now saying, hey, proof of work is a huge waste. We need to do something about it. So be ready to see what happens in this next year, these next 2 years. Some crazy things are going to go down, some unexpected things, because we're deep. It's literally the retail against the highest power of regulatory advisors that are working together with companies all around the world. Carbon neutral networks are the future. Public blockchains are considered the pure form of blockchain, envisaged by early developers, and so data are distributed widely, and control of that data can be decentralized. Public blockchains are permissionless and decentralized, although there can be public permission blockchains in which certain nodes are given specific rights. Such blockchains can remove reliance on single counterparties and authorities, and they aim to democratize the transfer of data between network participants on the blockchain. From a regulatory perspective, public blockchains are, in principle, less susceptible to cyber attacks, operational failures, and malicious behavior by individuals or entities, although they bring unique risks. The key advantages of public blockchains, specifically larger public networks, is the decentralization of information, which, among other things, makes them less susceptible to cyber attacks. Okay, sweet. They're saying that public blockchain is decentralized, it is less susceptible to cyber attacks, and even public blockchains can have centralized points of risk. For example, applications built on those networks like wallets and exchanges, right? Because everything has a security risk. Furthermore, it can be difficult to supervise participants on a public blockchain because they can be global or unknown. And this challenge can pose risks such as financial crime, and there may be a lack of recourse to end users or no way to fix market errors should any failure or fraud occur. So like if Tether went corrupt, what the fuck are they going to do? Who knows? Well, I shouldn't say if Tether went corrupt. They are corrupt because they're printing money out of thin air. And they have no audit to prove it. So, if there's ever a bank run where their assets they couldn't prove they owned all that money that they printed, then there's going to be a bank run. People are going to be selling Tether for 30 cents to the dollar. It'll be bad, but they can't do anything. You guys got to remember that the regulators can't do anything when we're investing in these blockchain markets. You get hacked. If you get something happens, you're fucked. They can't do anything. So private blockchains usually consist of a single or small number of entities and tend to give permissions to known and identifiable participants. In this way, private blockchains run counter to the intended ideals of the decentralized community, in that they shift risk from one centralized entity or authority to another, the network administrators. Within the payment space, these blockchains are proposed for so-called global stablecoin arrangement, as well as proposed CBDCs. So, consensus mechanisms in public blockchains. We know proof of work, we know proof of stake, and then delegated proof of stake. My main example is XDC network. That's what they run off of. So, proof of work as the fundamental underpinning of the Bitcoin developed by Satoshi Nakamoto. Proof of work is the most frequently used and well-known consensus mechanism. Blah, 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 blah. Don't need anything like that. So right here, this is where it is, you know, let's see what the IMF is saying here. So this is just wash up here. To solve the mathematical puzzles generated by the Bitcoin protocol, nodes need to use brute force, which in turn consumes considerable energy because brute force requires specialized computing systems to run through all possible solutions until the winning solution is found, an effort that uses significant power. The IMF has set out that the financial sector has an important role to play in the fight against climate change and seek to support reductions in climate change risk and mitigating the impact of adverse climate events. So here they are mentioning it again. The financial industry needs to fight against climate events. So what is going to happen from this? This is the start. However, the total energy uses of Bitcoin mining is compared to Poland at 140 terawatt hours, and so runs counter to this aim. Regulators using and supporting consensus mechanisms that rely on large-scale energy should pay attention to this energy consumption. Most of them will likely find such damaging impacts to the environment unacceptable. So this is going out to supervisors around the world from the IMF directors. So they're going to be reading this and they're going to be like, wow, maybe we should start considering that proof of work is something we need to stop. Okay, well, let's go. Proof of work guarantees eventual consistency in the blockchain. Competing forks can impact the network by making it slow, expensive, and inefficient. Forks can lead to slower settlement times, making the usage of proof of work inefficient in certain areas of financial services. Currently, the Bitcoin blockchain can process approximately a large 7 transactions per second. Huge. And although the development of the Lightning networks offers promise in this area, with its own flaws, I like how they put that. Its transaction rate is currently much lower than that of the traditional payment mechanisms like Visa, which averages around 1,700 transactions per second. Inconsistencies can also lead to risks to settlement finality. Transactions between counterparties carry risks, including credit, liquidity, operational, and legal risks, all of which can trigger systematic hazards. Rules around settlement finality aim to mitigate these risks. Let's see. Further, proof of work is seen to be potentially centralizing. The IMF is calling proof of work centralizing, which could negate the security that proof of work offers. As mathematical puzzles become increasingly complex, more powerful computing is needed to solve them. Given this large cost involved, such technology is available only to certain individuals or entities where mining pools are formed. This scenario can rise to questions around the powers, tool, and options available for the regulator to fix an eventual market failure. For example, an individual who or an entity that becomes too big to fail. So it says DLT based on proof of work consensus mechanisms might not be able to fit in the existing regulatory frameworks focused on settlement finality. Supervisors should be aware that many blockchains that use proof of work tend to be decentralized, which not all identities and nodes are known, and that can give rise to supervisory difficulties. Okay, so we just reviewed that, and they're attacking proof of work for the energy usage. It can't be used in the payment systems because it's expensive, slow. What else? Yeah, so that's pretty crazy when you start hearing this from the IMF now. So the narrative is changing because now this is going to trickle down society, right? Like, you know, supervisors are going to read this. They're going to start putting out regulations, rules. They're going to start talking about this in, you know, the House of Commons, Parliament, governments worldwide. Banks will then hop on the train to say, oh, Bitcoin is not going to $300,000. It's going to $10,000 because of the energy wastage. So now let's move on to proof of stake. Ethereum, my favorite. Said nobody ever, but fanboys and people that love high fees. Okay, so proof of stake consensus mechanism. An algorithm randomly selects validators for block creation based on the amount of token holders stake from their crypto asset ownership. Okay, so we're talking about the more tokens you own, the higher chance you can get for getting rewards. The first step in selecting a proposer, then a proposed block, and then validation of the proposed block. Holders with larger ownership of the native token have a greater chance of being selected, like playing the lottery. Even though everyone who buys a ticket has a chance of winning, and the selection is random, those with the most tickets have the greatest odds of winning. Let's think about that for a minute. The current banking system, the ones with all the money are making all the money. The ones without the money aren't making the money. So now we see the SEC government, they favor the Ethereum network, and they gave it the free pass, the ETH free pass. Why? Is it because they all are heavy bag holders of Ethereum network and it's moving to proof of stake? And since it's moving to proof of stake, the big bag holders are going to become even more wealthy because now they have the greatest odds of winning? Food for thought, but that's my perspective. By not requiring energy-intensive mining operations, proof of stake improves on some of the weaknesses, not all of them, and some of the weaknesses of proof of work, such as large energy consumption while preserving network security. This lessened energy consumption also means a lower need to issue many new coins to incentivize nodes to participate in the network. It also limits the risks of 51% attacks, which it would be difficult and expensive for anyone to carry out a 51% attack. Well, you did a 51% attack on Ethereum, you're going broke because you're at least paying $30 to $100 per transaction. Because ownership directly correlates with the chances of being selected, proof of stake consensus mechanisms can theoretically create a community where richer individuals or entities are more likely to be selected. Holy shit. This means those participants are more likely to be rewarded, fueling an environment where the rich get richer. The IMF is saying Ethereum's proof of stake is going to enrich the rich. Is there a problem with that? I think there is. That's why I don't touch Ethereum except for Quant. I love Quant, but I don't love Ethereum. Okay, so weaknesses within proof of stake consensus mechanisms might impact stability and integrity, such as centralization in smaller networks and the inefficiency of staking. In the long term, these flaws can lead to centralization-related issues, which can be particularly problematic in smaller networks or networks in their infancy, and this can impact market integrity. Authorities could also consider elements like sandboxing to help protect nascent networks. The potential for centralization is similar of proof of work, where participants can afford the most powerful machines that are able to generate rewards. However, proof of work-based advantages in terms of centralization are based on the different nature of the capital used for validation and the friction to which between the currency and the hardware and electricity. Even in larger proof-of-stake networks, the potential for validator cartels to form can lead to concerns around centralization. Validator cartels. Write that down. Validator cartels, the rich getting richer. Proof of stake is also inefficient in its use of network native resources. They're talking about safeguarding the integrity of financial systems, an important aspect of the BFA. So regulators could think about the appropriate network security and fairness. Authorities should consider these frameworks that incorporate appropriate systems and controls to mitigate against cyber and operational risks, such as the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision and Principles of Operational Resilience, 2021. It says, in line, the BFA elements on improving financial inclusion and ensuring open, free, and contestable markets. Authorities should be able to consider how to work with market participants developing these networks to ensure that they are as inclusive and collaborative as possible, and that these networks do not work to benefit a small privileged group and lead to areas of financial markets that lack contestability. So I think we should take screenshots of some of these pieces. I'll write a thread on it. And let's tag the SEC Gov in this. Let's tag Jay Clayton. Let's tag those guys. And let's show them what they're doing, because they're picking favorites to the proof of stake. So these bankers that hold all these fat pockets that got into Ethereum early are going to get even richer than they already are. Okay, delegated proof of stake. The DPoS model operates a voting system where the stakeholders chosen to validate a block can outsource their work to a third party. These third parties are known as witnesses and are responsible for achieving consensus during the generation and validation of new blocks. Benefits of DPoS include energy savings, greater decentralization, and positive participant behaviors. DPoS promotes greater democratization. All token holders can play some role in the operationalization of a network. It should be noted that in many models of blockchains that use delegated proof of stake voting is proportional to the amount of stake that participants place. DPoS also aims to promote positive behaviors from participants. So, you know, in the delegated proof of stake, they can shut down your account. They can do different things to penalize you where you're not getting rewards, etc., etc. DPoS is relatively new and provides opportunities for firms to generate efficiencies through a relatively fast transaction throughput and can deliver in both permission and permissionless networks. Developed and implemented in a compliant manner, DPoS can create a positive outcome for the markets and consumers by providing interesting use cases in regulated activities like payments, like trade finance, like digital documents. There's so many use cases out there. You just got to dive. This is because it can create a truly decentralized environment with the potential for quicker transaction rates. That said, because the mechanism has not been tested as long as proof of work or proof of stake has been, regulators should consider associated network security risks, cartel-like behavior, and limited voter participation. Okay. Consensus mechanisms in private blockchains. Federated Byzantine fault tolerance, FBFT. So that is the consensus that XRP and XLM run off of. I don't know anything about these other ones, DMBFT or proof of elapsed time, so I'm not even going to go over them because it's no sense to me. It's not relative. But this is the exciting stuff here. So one sec here. So this one, Instable, Practical, BFT. This is like Hyperledger and Consensus Quorum. I like XRP and XLM, so that's what I'm going over. Hyperledger is an awesome regulated network. So, but that's just out of my. I'm more public. I'm a public guy here. So right here, FBT is a Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus mechanism that aims to solve issues of centralization with greater scalability. In BFT mechanisms described above, identities of all participants are known. However, in FBFT, the identities of all nodes do not have to be known. So this is where, you know, XLM and XRP nodes, they're anonymous, right? There is... yeah, so membership is open and control can be decentralized. So anyone that says XRP and XLM is not decentralized, they are straight up potatoes because it's a decentralized token ecosystem like XRP, but it has centralized holdings in the Ripple's escrow. But Ripple can't sell all those, right? It's locked in a smart contract of escrow that gets released and slowly released, so only a little bit gets sold to the open market. Whatever doesn't sell gets locked back into the thing. So, but I go over this in the XRP video there that you guys can watch. So it uses a unique node list, which a subset of nodes is needed for agreement. Within financial services, BFT consensus mechanisms can generate large efficiencies for retail payments, wholesale settlements. So retail payments, XRP, XLM, wholesale settlements, XRP for their wholesale CBDC solutions on their federated sidechains, and other back office functions. Well, like foreign exchange, like debt, equity, you know, there's different things, man. There's a lot of money out there that needs to be moved efficiently, because the current system is fucking broken. Pardon my language, but that's how I hate this current system. The BFT works best where network participants are known. The algorithms are built for speed and have immediate block finality. The latter is particularly operationally flexible, and it allows groups of validators to be modified over time with increasing scale, speed, blah, blah, blah. But here it is, right here. As well-known use cases as Ripple and Stellar. The IMF is calling Ripple and Stellar decentralized use cases. And authorities might consider how FBFT consensus mechanisms can balance a decentralized and distributed network with efficiencies, such as high transaction rate and settlement finality. So we just read this IMF document. They're crapping on Ethereum. They're crapping on proof of work. Well, they're crapping on proof of stake. Sorry, it's just me toning in about my negative Ethereum attitude. Because, you know, when I do 8 transactions on Ethereum and it costs me $800 American, I think to scale of the whole globe, how much of that money is actually going to miners and enriching a select few, while here we are just trying to get a transaction to go through. And that really upsets me, because I care for all you citizens. I care for everyone out there that's losing money. You know, it's not efficient when we got to pay $100 to make one transaction. Oh, your transaction failed, and oh, I got to pay a cancellation fee. Are you kidding me? Like, what is this? The banking system? Like, this is messed up. So okay, so conclusion here. Let's finish this off strong. Let's see, we're into here. Oh my God, 48 minutes. Sorry guys, this is long reading this stuff. Proof of work is too energy intensive to be considered a viable consensus mechanism involving many regulated financial service activities. It runs counter to several of the IMF aims, particularly those involved transitioning to a greener economy. Do you hear this? Although the mechanism is secure, resilient, and offers true democratization of data within distributed systems, significant energy consumption, the nature of forking, and the attendant issues around probabilistic settlement are likely to create friction with many regulatory frameworks, regulatory mandates, and the BFA. This is in their conclusion for supervisors. We gotta realize how big this is, and I'm telling you guys, I'm gonna mark this day from a year from now and 2 years from now. We're gonna see a domino effect of regulatory whips being lashed, and it's gonna be a fight. So if you support Bitcoin and you support these markets, be ready for a fight. Or go carbon neutral. Carbon neutral, you'll be adopted. Proof of work, you got a battle on your hands. So here you go. This is just a comparison chart you guys can look at. These are similar mechanisms are likely to be deployed in financial services, where participants are known and likely to be used in global stablecoins and potential CBDCs, which can create risks to financial stability. The mechanisms can rise risk, blah, blah, blah. Deploy widely used products like global stablecoins. Now, at the end of this, I'm going to reflect back to this stablecoin thing and networks that are too big to fail. So, public and private collaboration might be better to allow authorities to monitor developments in the market and ensure the development of compliant business models in new financial services. Shitcoins are going to die. I'm telling you that right now. If they don't have federated on bridges, off bridges, your shitcoin is going to die out. Where development of DLT is small and non-systematic, authorities might decide to take a wait-and-see approach. Where development of DLT operates at a larger scale, authorities might take a test-and-learn approach through outreach and engagement to better understand the risks and benefits as well as the additional variables. Such variables include interoperability with other financial systems, emerging standards across financial institutions. So let's talk about this. Interoperability with other financial institutions. So interoperability is Quant and other bridges that can get in with traditional finance. So Quant will connect these regulated blockchain networks to financial systems. And then we talk about emerging standards across financial institutions. Well, what do you think about? I think about ISO 20022. We know that's the messaging standard that's being upgraded between banks worldwide. That is a requirement by 2025. I think about ISO TC 307, which is a blockchain standard that companies are working towards, that Gilbert Verdian of Quant Network has put in place years ago, and I will attach some screenshots so you can take a look at that. And it says engagement between authority and industries can happen through short-term engagements using business as usual supervision, or through longer-term engagements via innovation hubs. Short-term public and private collaboration can happen through joint events or commission surveys focused on consensus mechanisms. Longer-term collaboration can be through joint research, experiments, and testings. So they're saying regulatory authorities should consider implications of different consensus mechanisms and consider a technology agnostic approach, so they're not picking favorites like the SEC government is. It's fucking bullshit. Pardon my language. By taking a technology agnostic approach, authorities can work with market participants to better understand the strengths and weaknesses of different consensus mechanisms and where comparative advantages in the provision of different financial products and services, for example, payments and issuing debt and equity, supply chain management, and record activity might exist. Shifting through a technology agnostic approach, authorities remain unbiased to the use of different technologies, but recognize the different technologies and bring different risks, and authorities are not neutral to these risks. So if they're not neutral, it's unfair to the technology, and it's unfair to the citizens, because if they pick favorites, then that's not letting technologies that could actually flourish. They're denying the right to that flourishment because they're busy picking favorites, like the SEC governor Ethereum. Supervisors can ask firms pertinent questions and make accurate judgments on the risk and efficiency of different consensus mechanisms. Although regulatory authorities are beginning to make a shift towards becoming more data-driven, digital regulators, resources, budgets, and availability of the skilled supervisors remain a challenge for many of them. Here are the international organizations like the IMF have a role to play providing technical assistance and sharing best practices. Standard-setting bodies can help by providing global recommendations that can provide minimum requirements for consensus mechanisms when utilized in regulated financial entities. So you're going to create standards. Then they're talking about regulatory sandboxes can help authorities understand and help them foster the technology that is coming. Well, that was a big mouthful. I hope that shows you that what is to come, because this has put some thoughts in my mind that, back up some arguments that we've been thinking about in the communities here. So okay, so this is the stable coin I want to quickly refer back to. So I wrote about this 3 weeks ago. It was in a CBDC cross-border payments World Bank document, okay? But this is the things that I noticed. So first things first, they talk about XRP and XLM as stable coins. They call them digital currencies. Right here in here, they call them digital currencies. Cough SEC Gov, they're not securities. Why is the World Bank calling XRP and XLM digital currencies, but you guys are calling them securities? Sounds like you're really only talking about the United States thinks they're securities, and the United States is going to be wrong. Japan, just throwing this out there. Japan, it's not a security, it's a digital asset. They're completely separate entities. They're two different classifications. It's not XRP, not a security in Japan, it's a digital asset. It's a new class of currency. US is falling behind in this race, and this is why I'm calling it out. So basically, my question is, they call XRP and XLM a stable coin. but they're not. The price isn't stable. But what is stable is that it settles in 4 seconds, and it's always a fraction of a cent, and it's scalable. So maybe they're calling it a stable coin because of its ability to that in that fraction of in the 4 second settlement, the price is stable. The price doesn't fluctuate in that time. So if you're an institution and you're settling funds, whether it's $1 million, $10 million, in that 4 seconds, and you cash out on the other side, well, there hasn't been much movement. Maybe that's what they refer to as stablecoin, comparing it to the current legacy financial system, which is, correspondent banking system, which takes 5 to 7 business days for the payment to settle. There's no end-to-end tracking. You got all your foreign exchange fees. You got your settlement fees, and then you got your Nostro and Vostro accounts, which are gaining 0% interest. And so maybe they're talking about stability in that when you send that payment and it's there in 4 seconds, that's a stable coin that you can settle in 4 seconds. That is just my theory, and if you guys want to chip in why they would call, XRP and XLM stable coins, feel free, share your thoughts. But that's what I want to leave you guys with is, we see the IMF here. We read this document, and they mention a global stable coin system. They mention Ripple. They mention XLM. And then we see a World Bank document here, which talks about stable coins, Ripple and XLM, which is very convenient that those two are mentioned in the IMF and in the World Bank document under the same stablecoin stuff. But yeah, anyways, I'm going to leave you guys the article. You guys can read it, share it. If you've got something out of this, like, comment, subscribe, leave some feedback. Share it with your favorite influencers. Be like, check this out. Let's get this information out there. I'm a small account. I got 6,000 followers. It's just a drop in the bucket. But what I want to do is create regulated content that helps show you guys what we are in. Because we are in markets of the future. I classify all of us as citizens of the future. If you're participating in these markets, you're a citizen of the future. So, everyone out there, I hope you got something from this. Thank you for supporting and liking, commenting, and cheers. I hope this was great, and I'll see you next one. Citizen of the future.